The morning air on Zerion 7 tasted like metal and dust. Sergeant Marcus Chen checked his rifle for the third time and looked at the mixed group of soldiers around him. Half were human like him. The other half were aliens from the Galactic Coalition. The tall, crystal-like Veltar soldiers stood perfectly still, their blue bodies catching the weak sunlight. The bug-like Zephyrians clicked their mandibles nervously and kept moving their 6 legs. Marcus had worked with alien soldiers before. They were good fighters, but they always seemed surprised by how humans acted. Today would probably be no different. "Listen up," Marcus said, his voice carrying across the small group. "We have one job today. There's an enemy communication tower about 5 kilometers from here. We need to destroy it. The enemy pulled back yesterday, but they might have left surprises for us." A Veltar soldier named Crystal Sings at Dawn stepped forward. His voice sounded like wind chimes when he spoke. "Sergeant Chen, our scouts report the terrain ahead is extremely dangerous. Perhaps we should wait for heavy support vehicles?" Marcus shook his head. "The longer we wait, the more time they have to set up new defenses. We go now, we go fast, and we get out." The Zephyrian soldier called Buzz in Morning clicked her mandibles louder. "Humans always rush into danger. On my homeworld, we would study the area for days before moving. Your homeworld doesn't have predators that hunt you while you think," Marcus replied with a small smile. "Earth taught us to move fast or die. That's why we're here and not somewhere safe." The alien soldiers looked at each other. They had heard stories about Earth, the human homeworld. Other species called it a death world, because everything there seemed designed to kill living things. The gravity was too strong. The weather changed too fast. Dangerous animals lived everywhere. Most aliens could not understand how humans had survived long enough to reach space. Marcus started walking toward their target. The group followed him across the rocky ground. The human soldiers moved easily, jumping over rocks and ducking under low branches. They carried their weapons ready but relaxed. The alien soldiers were more careful. They checked every step and looked around constantly. "Sergeant," Crystal Sings at Dawn said as they walked, "may I ask why humans seem so comfortable in dangerous places?" Marcus thought about the question. "I guess we're used to it. On Earth, everything wants to eat you, poison you, or crush you. The weather can kill you in minutes, so we learned to adapt fast and keep moving." A human private named Lopez laughed. "My grandmother used to say that Earth is like basic training for the universe." The Zephyrian soldier Buzz in Morning made a sound like chattering. "This is why other species fear humans. You treat deadly situations like normal activities." "Fear us?" Marcus asked, surprised. "We're on the same side." "Yes, but..." Crystal Sings at Dawn paused. "Stories say humans can survive injuries that would kill most beings. Stories say humans fight even when they should retreat. Stories say humans never give up even when giving up makes sense." Marcus stopped walking and turned to face the alien soldiers. "Look, we're not crazy. We just learned different lessons growing up. When you live on a world that tries to kill you every day, you learn to keep going no matter what happens. That's not scary. That's just smart." The group continued moving. They crossed a valley filled with sharp rocks that cut through boot soles. They climbed a hill covered in thorny plants that grabbed at their clothes. They walked through a forest where the trees dripped acid that burned small holes in their equipment. The human soldiers moved through all of this like they were walking in a park. They helped each other when needed, but none of them complained or asked to stop. The alien soldiers struggled more. Their equipment was better, but they moved slowly and carefully. "How do you do this?" Buzz in Morning asked Marcus after she slipped on wet rocks for the 4th time. "Practice," Marcus said, helping her stand up. "Also, we know that being careful can be dangerous too. Sometimes you have to risk a small injury to avoid a big one." They reached a ridge that looked down at their target. The communication tower stood in the center of a flat area surrounded by rocky walls. It was tall and thin, made of metal that reflected light in strange colors. Around the base they could see signs that the enemy had left in a hurry. Equipment was scattered everywhere. Crystal Sings at Dawn used his scanner to examine the area. "I detect multiple energy signatures. The enemy has definitely left defensive systems in place." Marcus nodded. "Expected that." "What kind?" "Plasma mines buried in the ground. Energy barriers that will activate if we get too close. Automated weapons platforms hidden in the rocks." The alien soldiers looked worried. Buzz in Morning clicked her mandibles rapidly. "This is extremely dangerous. We should call for orbital bombardment." "Can't do that," Marcus said. "We need to capture their communication codes before we destroy the tower." That means we go in on foot and access their computers first. But the defensive systems, Crystal Sings at Dawn started. Will be a problem, Marcus agreed. But not an impossible problem. Humans have been dealing with things that want to kill us for thousands of years. This is just another Tuesday. Marcus pulled out a map and spread it on the ground. The mixed squad gathered around him. Here's the plan. We split into 3 groups. Group 1 creates noise on the east side to draw attention. Group 2 goes around the west side and starts disabling the automated weapons. Group 3, that's me, and whoever wants to volunteer goes straight down the middle to the tower. The alien soldiers stared at him. Crystal Sings at Dawn spoke first. The middle route is the most dangerous path. All the defenses will focus on that area. Exactly, Marcus said. That's why it's the fastest route. While they're shooting at me, you 2 groups can work without as much pressure. This plan requires someone to accept almost certain injury or death, Buzz in Morning said. Marcus shrugged. Maybe. But sitting here definitely won't complete the mission. And if we wait too long, they might send reinforcements. A human corporal named Williams raised his hand. I'll go with you, Sergeant. Another human private named Kim nodded. Me too. The alien soldiers looked amazed. Crystal Sings at Dawn made a sound like breaking glass. You would volunteer for the most dangerous assignment? Someone has to do it, Williams said. Might as well be us. Marcus stood up and folded his map. All right, people. We move in 10 minutes. Remember, fast and aggressive. Don't give them time to think. As the soldiers checked their weapons and equipment, Crystal Sings at Dawn spoke quietly to Buzz in Morning. Now I understand why they call Earth a death world. It did not just make humans hard to kill, it made them willing to risk death to protect others. Buzz in Morning watched Marcus help a young human soldier adjust his armor. Perhaps the stories about humans are not exaggerated after all. The 10 minutes passed quickly. Marcus looked at his mixed squad one last time. Everyone ready? The humans nodded confidently. The alien soldiers looked nervous but determined. Good, Marcus said. Let's go show them what a death world education looks like. They began moving down the ridge toward the enemy tower, not knowing that this simple mission would change how the entire Galactic Coalition thought about humans forever. The first plasma mine exploded just as Marcus reached the bottom of the ridge. The blast threw dirt and rocks into the air, but he was already moving sideways when it happened. Years of training on Earth had taught him to never run in straight lines when someone was shooting at him. Contact front, William shouted from Marcus's left side. Red energy beams started shooting from hidden positions in the rocks around the tower. Marcus dove behind a large boulder as more mines exploded around them. The sound was like thunder mixed with breaking glass. His rifle was ready, and he quickly looked around the rock to see where the enemy weapons were hidden. Group 2, start your attack now, he called into his radio. Group 1, make some noise on the east side. Crystal Sings at Dawn's voice came through the radio, sounding worried. Sergeant, the defensive systems are more active than expected. We count at least 12 automated weapons platforms. Then we better move fast, Marcus replied. He turned to Williams and Kim, who were crouched behind rocks near him. You 2 see that gap between the red rocks? That's our path to the tower. Kim looked where Marcus was pointing and shook her head. Sarge, that area is covered by at least 3 weapons platforms. They'll cut us apart. Not if we move fast enough, Marcus said. Remember, these are automated systems. They have to track us and predict where we're going. If we move unpredictably, they can't hit us. Williams checked his rifle and nodded. Like dodging mountain cats back home? Exactly, Marcus said. Except these mountain cats shoot plasma. From their positions around the tower, the alien soldiers watched in amazement as the 3 humans prepared to run directly into the most dangerous area. Buzz in Morning spoke into her radio. Humans, this is extremely risky. Our calculations show a 93% chance of severe injury. Your calculations don't account for human reflexes, Marcus replied. We've been dodging things that want to kill us since we were children. Crystal Sings at Dawn was firing his energy rifle at one of the automated weapons when he heard Marcus's response. He had seen humans train before, but he had never understood why they practiced such dangerous exercises. Now he was beginning to understand. On my mark, Marcus said. 3, 2, 1, go! The 3 humans burst from cover like they had been shot from a cannon. They ran in a zigzag pattern, jumping over rocks and sliding under fallen logs. The automated weapons turned to track them, but the humans changed direction every few steps. A plasma beam passed so close to Marcus that it burned a hole in his sleeve. Another beam hit the ground right where Kim had been standing a second before. But the humans kept moving, never staying in one place long enough for the weapons to lock onto them. Impossible, Crystal Sings at Dawn whispered as he watched them run. No species moves that fast while under fire. The humans were halfway to the tower when everything went wrong. Marcus stepped on a hidden pressure plate and a ring of plasma mines exploded around him. The blast was much bigger than the others. It created a wall of fire and superheated air that threw all three humans in different directions. Williams landed hard against a rock wall but rolled and kept moving. Kim was knocked down but got back up quickly, her armor smoking but intact. Marcus was not so lucky. The explosion had caught him at the worst possible moment. A piece of metal debris, heated to incredible temperatures by the plasma blast, had sliced through his left arm just below the elbow. His arm from the elbow down was gone, torn away by the force of the explosion. Crystal Sings at Dawn saw what happened through his scope. He made a sound like breaking crystal and spoke into his radio. Sergeant Chen is severely injured. His appendage has been severed. We need immediate medical evacuation. Buzz in Morning stopped firing and stared at the human sergeant. In her experience, losing a limb meant immediate shock, unconsciousness, and often death. She expected Marcus to fall down and stop moving, but Marcus did not fall down. Instead, he looked at his missing arm with the same expression he might use to examine a broken piece of equipment. Blood was flowing from the wound, but he seemed more annoyed than worried. Well, that's not good, Marcus said, loud enough for his radio to pick up his voice. Williams and Kim had seen what happened and were running toward him, but Marcus waved them away with his remaining hand. Stay focused on the mission. I'm fine, fine, Crystal Sings at Dawn repeated in disbelief. Sergeant, you have lost a significant portion of your appendage. Marcus reached into his medical kit with his right hand and pulled out a tourniquet. He put one end of the strap in his mouth and used his teeth to help tighten it around his upper arm. The bleeding slowed down significantly. It's just an arm, Marcus said as he worked. I've got another one. The alien soldiers stopped fighting to stare at him. They could not believe what they were seeing. Marcus had just suffered what should be a devastating injury, but he was treating it like a minor inconvenience. Marcus pulled a small injection device from his kit and stabbed it into his leg. The combat stimulant would help him stay alert and reduce the pain. He had used similar drugs during training exercises on Earth, when soldiers had to keep working despite injuries. Sergeant, Buzz in Morning said over the radio, you need immediate medical attention. You should retreat to a safe position. Negative, Marcus replied. He picked up his rifle with his right hand and tested his grip. The mission isn't finished. Crystal Sings at Dawn watched in horror as Marcus started running toward the tower again. The human was moving almost as fast as before, even with only one arm. He carried his rifle in a one-handed grip and fired at the automated weapons with surprising accuracy. This is not possible, Crystal Sings at Dawn said to himself. No being can function normally after such trauma. But Marcus was not just functioning normally. He was adapting to his new situation with frightening speed. When he needed to reload his rifle, he braced it against his body and used his knee to help operate the mechanism. When he needed to throw a grenade, he pulled the pin with his teeth and threw it with perfect accuracy. Williams and Kim caught up with him halfway to the tower. They were both staring at him with expressions of worry and amazement. Sarge, are you sure you're okay? Kim asked. I'm fine, Marcus said. Just need to adjust my fighting style a little. A little? Williams said. You lost your arm. Marcus looked at him seriously. No, I lost a tool. I still have everything I need to complete this mission. My brain still works. My legs still work. My shooting hand still works. The rest is just details. The alien soldiers listening to this conversation felt something close to fear. They had always known humans were tough, but this was beyond anything they had imagined. Marcus was not just surviving his injury. He was dismissing it as unimportant. Buzz in Morning spoke quietly to Crystal Sings at Dawn. Now I understand why they call humans Deathworlders. They do not just survive in deadly environments. They refuse to let anything stop them. Look at him, Crystal Sings at Dawn replied. He has suffered an injury that would disable any of us, but he acts like nothing has changed. Marcus reached the base of the tower and started working on the door controls. He had to figure out how to operate the complex electronic lock with only one hand. But he solved the problem quickly. He used his knee to brace the control panel and his fingers to input the access codes. Doors open, he announced over the radio. Williams, Kim, you're with me. Everyone else keep those automated weapons busy. As the three humans disappeared into the tower, the alien soldiers continued their attack on the defensive systems. But now they fought with a new understanding of what humans were capable of. They had just watched one of them lose a limb and continue fighting like nothing had happened. Crystal Sings at Dawn hit his target with a perfect shot and spoke into his radio. All units, be advised, human resilience exceeds all previous estimates. Repeat, human capabilities are beyond our current understanding. Inside the tower, Marcus was already working on the computer systems, using his one remaining hand to access the enemy communication codes. The mission was still on schedule, despite everything that had gone wrong. Just another day at the office, he said to himself, not knowing that his words were being recorded by his radio and would later become part of Galactic Coalition training materials. Inside the enemy tower, Marcus worked at the main computer terminal while Williams and Kim watched the entrances. The computer screen showed rows of data in the enemy's language, but Marcus had studied their systems during briefings. His right hand moved quickly across the keyboard, downloading communication codes and tactical information. "How much longer, Sarge?" Williams asked, looking nervously at the door. 2 minutes, Marcus replied without looking up from the screen. "Maybe 3. Kim noticed that Marcus was sweating more than usual and that his face was pale. "You sure you're okay? You lost a lot of blood out there." Marcus glanced at the bandage stump where his left arm used to be. "I'll be fine. The tourniquet stopped the bleeding and the stimulant is keeping me alert. I've had worse injuries during training on Earth." "Worse than losing an arm?" Williams asked in disbelief. "Different kinds of worse," Marcus said. "Remember that survival exercise in the Amazon? I got bit by a snake, broke 2 ribs, and had to walk 30 kilometers with food poisoning. At least this time I know exactly what's wrong with me." Outside the tower, Crystal Sings at Dawn was listening to this conversation through the radio. He translated for Buzz in Morning, who made clicking sounds of amazement. "He compares losing a limb to training exercises," she asked. "What kind of world creates beings who think this way?" Crystal Sings at Dawn had been studying human culture since joining the Coalition forces. Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world. The survival rate for most species would be less than 1%. Humans evolved there for millions of years. They think differently than we do. "I am beginning to understand," Buzz in Morning replied. "They do not see injuries as disasters. They see them as problems to solve." Inside the tower, Marcus had finished downloading the data, but now he faced a new challenge. The computer system required two-handed operation to access the self-destruct mechanism. The designers had never imagined someone would try to operate it with only one arm. "Problem," Marcus announced. "I need 2 hands to activate the tower's destruction sequence." Williams moved toward the computer. "I can help." "No," Marcus said, studying the control panel carefully. "This is a security system. It needs specific biometric readings from the person who accessed the main computer. It has to be me." Marcus looked at the 2 control panels that needed to be operated simultaneously. They were positioned about a meter apart, clearly designed so that no single person could reach both at the same time. But the designers had not planned for human creativity. "Kim, help me move this equipment," Marcus said, pointing to a heavy computer tower next to the main console. Together, they pushed the equipment until it was positioned between the 2 control panels. Marcus climbed onto it, putting himself at the right height to reach both panels. But he still only had one hand. "Watch and learn," Marcus said with a small smile. He placed his right hand on one control panel and used his right foot to operate the other panel. It took him several tries to get the timing right, but eventually both panels activated simultaneously. "Destruction sequence initiated," the computer announced in the enemy language. "Tower will self-destruct in 5 minutes." Williams stared at Marcus with his mouth open. "How did you even think of that?" "Humans are good at improvising," Marcus said as he climbed down from the equipment. "When you can't do something the normal way, you find a different way." They left the tower and rejoined the rest of the squad. The alien soldiers had successfully destroyed most of the automated weapons, and the area was relatively safe now. But all of them were staring at Marcus as he approached. Crystal Sings at Dawn was the first to speak. "Sergeant, you have accomplished the mission despite suffering a severe injury." "This is remarkable." Marcus shrugged with his remaining shoulder. The mission was the priority. "Personal problems come second." "Personal problems," Buzz in Morning repeated. You lost an appendage. And I'll get a replacement when we get back to base, Marcus said matter-of-factly. The medical corps has some excellent prosthetic arms now. I might even get one with built-in tools. The idea seemed to cheer him up. Actually, this might work out pretty well. I've always wanted to try one of those new cyber arms with the integrated computer interface. Kim laughed despite herself. Only you would find the bright side of losing an arm, Sarge. Everything has a bright side if you look hard enough, Marcus replied. Besides, now I have a great story to tell at the bar. As they walked away from the tower, Marcus continued to function normally despite his injury. When they had to cross rough terrain, he figured out how to climb rocks one-handed. When they needed to set up communication equipment, he modified the standard procedures to work with a single person. The alien soldiers watched all of this with growing amazement. Every few minutes, one of them would ask Marcus if he needed help or if he wanted to rest. Every time, he politely declined and continued working. Sergeant Chen, Crystal Sings at Dawn said as they reached the extraction point. May I ask you something personal? Sure, Marcus said, checking his weapon with practiced one-handed movements. Do you not feel pain from your injury? Marcus considered the question. Of course I feel pain. The stimulant helps, but it still hurts quite a bit. Then why do you continue to function normally? Because stopping won't make it hurt less, Marcus said simply. And we still have a job to do. Pain is just information. It tells me something is wrong, but I already know that. Now I need to focus on getting everyone home safely. Buzz in Morning had been quiet for several minutes, but now she spoke up. On my homeworld, losing a limb would mean the end of a military career. The injured person would be considered disabled and would retire to a care facility. That seems wasteful, Marcus said. Just because one part stops working doesn't mean the whole person is broken. I can still think, still fight, still lead soldiers. The arm was useful, but it wasn't essential. The conversation was interrupted by the sound of the tower exploding behind them. The destruction was complete, sending a column of smoke and fire into the sky. Marcus watched the explosion with satisfaction. Mission accomplished, he announced over the radio. Package secured, target destroyed, all personnel accounted for. As they waited for their transport, Marcus sat down on a rock and finally allowed himself to rest. The stimulant was wearing off and the pain was getting stronger, but he still seemed more concerned about his soldiers than himself. Everyone okay? He asked, looking around the group. Any injuries I should know about? Williams pointed at Marcus's missing arm. Sarge, you're the one with the injury. This? Marcus looked at his bandaged stump. This is just a flesh wound. Everyone else is intact, so we did good today. Crystal Sings at Dawn made a sound like wind chimes in a storm. Sergeant, you have redefined my understanding of the phrase flesh wound. It's all about perspective, Marcus said. I've still got everything I really need. 2 legs to walk, 1 hand to shoot, and a brain to think. Everything else is just extra equipment. When their transport arrived, Marcus insisted on helping load equipment despite his injury. He had figured out how to carry heavy boxes by balancing them against his body and using his remaining arm to guide them. The alien soldiers watched him work and spoke quietly among themselves. Now, I understand why humans are so effective in combat, Buzz in Morning said. They do not allow physical limitations to become mental limitations. Look at him, Crystal Sings at Dawn replied. He has adapted to his injury so quickly that he seems almost unchanged. This is not normal behavior for any species I know. Perhaps that is why they call Earth a death world, Buzz in Morning suggested. It did not just make humans physically tough, it made them mentally unbreakable. As the transport lifted off, Marcus was already planning modifications to his equipment and tactics to account for his new physical situation. In his mind, losing an arm was just another challenge to overcome, like bad weather or difficult terrain. The alien soldiers, however, were realizing that they had just witnessed something extraordinary. They had seen a human lose a major appendage and continue fighting as if nothing had happened. This was a lesson they would never forget, and a story they would tell for the rest of their lives. The military medical bay was busy when their transport arrived at the Coalition base. Marcus walked off the ship under his own power, carrying his gear with his remaining arm. The alien medics who saw him stopped what they were doing and stared in shock. Dr. Thill of Manywaters, a Veltar medical officer, approached Marcus with scanning equipment. His crystalline body flashed with colors that indicated extreme concern. Sergeant Chen, you should be unconscious from blood loss and trauma shock, the doctor said, running his scanners over Marcus's injury. "How are you still mobile?" "Basic first aid and stubborn determination," Marcus replied. "Plus some combat stimulants that are probably wearing off soon." Dr. Thill of Many Waters looked at his scanner readings in disbelief. "Your blood pressure is low but stable. Your pain indicators should have you incapacitated, but your vital signs show normal cognitive function. This defies medical logic." "Human medical logic is different," Marcus said as he sat on the examination table. "We're built to keep working even when parts break down." A Zephyrian nurse named Clicks with Precision approached with medical supplies. She moved carefully around Marcus, clearly nervous about treating a human. "Sergeant, we need to sedate you for surgery. The amount of pain you must be experiencing—" "I'd prefer to stay awake if possible," Marcus interrupted. "I want to understand what you're doing so I can work better with the prosthetic afterward." Dr. Thill of Many Waters made a sound like glass breaking. "Sergeant, we are going to clean the wound, seal blood vessels, and prepare the limb for prosthetic attachment." "This will be extremely painful, I figured," Marcus said. "But I've been through worse medical procedures." "Do what you need to do." Crystal Sings at Dawn and Buzz in Morning had followed Marcus to the medical bay. They stood in the corner, watching the human interact with the medical staff. Both alien soldiers were amazed by what they were seeing. "He wants to remain conscious during surgery," Crystal Sings at Dawn whispered to his companion. "No being voluntarily experiences that level of pain." "Unless they are from a death world," Buzz in Morning replied. "Perhaps pain tolerance is another human adaptation." The medical team began working on Marcus's injury. They used advanced tools to clean the wound and seal damaged blood vessels. Marcus watched the entire procedure with interest, asking questions about the techniques and equipment. "Fascinating," he said, as Dr. Thill of Many Waters used a micro-laser to seal a blood vessel. "That's much more precise than the emergency medical tools we carry in the field. You find this interesting?" Clicks with Precision asked in amazement. "Most patients would be screaming or unconscious by now." "Well, it hurts," Marcus admitted, "but it's also educational. I like understanding how things work." Dr. Thill of Many Waters paused in his work. "Sergeant, your stress hormone levels are elevated, but they're consistent with mild anxiety, not severe pain." "Are you certain you can feel what we're doing?" "Oh, I can feel it," Marcus said. "It's just that pain is information. Once I know something hurts, I don't need to keep paying attention to it." The alien medical staff exchanged glances. This was completely outside their experience with patient care. Most species required heavy sedation for minor procedures, but this human was having major surgery while carrying on a normal conversation. "Sergeant Chen," Dr. Thill of Many Waters said, "would you mind if I record this procedure for medical research? Your pain tolerance may be valuable information for treating other humans." "Sure," Marcus replied. "Anything that helps the war effort." As the surgery continued, Marcus began discussing tactical improvements for future missions. He talked about how losing an arm had changed, his combat effectiveness, and what equipment modifications might help other soldiers in similar situations. "The standard rifle is designed for two-handed operation," he explained to Williams, who had come to check on him. "But with some modifications to the grip and trigger mechanism, it could work just as well one-handed." Williams shook his head in amazement. "Sarge, you're getting surgery and you're thinking about equipment upgrades?" "Best time to think about it," Marcus said. "My experience is fresh, and I have a captive audience of medical professionals who understand anatomy." Dr. Thill of Many Waters looked up from his work. "Sergeant, you are discussing military tactics while I am operating on exposed nerve endings. This is not normal behavior." "Define normal," Marcus replied with a slight smile. "Normal for a human from Earth or normal for someone from a safer world?" The question made the alien medical staff pause. They were beginning to understand that human normal was very different from what they considered normal behavior. "Doctor," Clicks with Precision said quietly, "his neural activity patterns show he is processing pain normally, but his brain is simply categorizing it as non-priority information." "Exactly," Marcus said, having overheard the comment. "Pain is just another input like temperature or pressure. It tells me something about my environment, but it doesn't control my actions." Crystal Sings at Dawn stepped forward. "Sergeant, may I ask how humans learn this kind of pain tolerance?" Marcus thought about the question while Dr. Thill of Many Waters continued working on his arm. "We don't really learn it. We're born with it. Earth is full of things that cause pain. Plants with thorns, insects that sting, animals that bite. If pain stopped us from functioning, we would have gone extinct millions of years ago. But this level of injury, Buzz in Morning started, is definitely above average. Marcus agreed, but not impossible to deal with. When I was 12, I fell into a river during a camping trip and broke both legs. I had to crawl 3 kilometers to reach help. You learn to work through problems. The alien soldiers looked at each other in shock. A 12-year-old human had crawled 3 kilometers with broken legs. This was beyond anything they could imagine. Dr. Thill of Many Waters finished the surgery and began preparing the limb for prosthetic attachment. Sergeant, the surgery is complete. Your recovery time should be minimal with human physiology, but you will need several days to adapt to the prosthetic. How long before I can return to active duty? Marcus asked. At least 2 weeks, the doctor replied. You need time for the attachment points to heal properly. Marcus looked disappointed. That's a long time to be out of action. Is there anything I can do to speed up the process? Rest and proper nutrition, Dr. Thill of Many Waters said firmly. And before you ask, no, there are no safe ways to accelerate healing beyond your natural recovery rate. A few hours later, Marcus was fitted with a temporary prosthetic arm. It was a basic model, designed for simple tasks while his permanent replacement was being prepared. The alien technicians expected him to need days to learn how to use it. Marcus had it figured out in 20 minutes. The neural interface is responsive, he reported, flexing the prosthetic fingers. Grip strength is about 60% of biological normal, but that's workable. Response time is slightly delayed, but within acceptable parameters. The technician, a young Veltar named Spark in Darkness, stared at Marcus in amazement. Sergeant, most patients require extensive training to achieve basic functionality with prosthetic limbs. I had good motivation to learn quickly, Marcus replied, practicing more complex movements with the artificial hand. Plus, it's not that different from learning to use any other tool. Within an hour, Marcus was back to performing most of his normal activities. He cleaned his rifle, organized his equipment, and wrote his mission report. The only sign that anything had changed was the mechanical whirring sound when he moved his prosthetic arm. Crystal Sings at Dawn and Buzz in Morning visited him in the recovery area that evening. They found him doing exercises to improve his coordination with the prosthetic. Sergeant, Crystal Sings at Dawn said, we wanted to thank you for completing the mission, despite your injury. Your dedication was remarkable. Just doing my job, Marcus replied, continuing his exercises. Besides, the mission was important. Losing an arm didn't change that. But how do you adapt so quickly? Buzz in Morning asked. This morning you had 2 biological arms. Tonight you are functioning normally with an artificial replacement. Marcus considered the question. I guess humans are good at accepting change. When something breaks, we fix it or find a replacement. When we can't fix it, we adapt to the new situation. Spending too much time being upset about things we can't change is just wasted energy. The alien soldiers realized they were witnessing something unique. Marcus had suffered a traumatic injury that would have ended most beings' military careers, but he had already adapted and was preparing to return to duty. Tomorrow I start training with the advanced prosthetic, Marcus said cheerfully. The technical specs look impressive. Built-in computer interface, enhanced strength, integrated tools. I might actually be more effective than before. Crystal Sings at Dawn made a sound like wind chimes. Only a human would consider losing a limb as an opportunity for improvement. Every problem is an opportunity if you look at it the right way, Marcus replied. That's lesson 1 from Deathworld Survival School. 3 days after the mission, Marcus was back in the training areas with his new advanced prosthetic arm. The artificial limb was black metal and polymer, with visible circuits that glowed blue when he used its enhanced functions. He was teaching a mixed group of human and alien soldiers about equipment adaptation techniques. The key to working with prosthetics, Marcus explained to the gathered soldiers, is not to think of them as replacements for what you lost. Think of them as new tools with different capabilities. He demonstrated by lifting a heavy ammunition box with his prosthetic arm. The artificial muscles whirred softly as they provided strength that exceeded his original biological arm. This arm is stronger than my old one, he said. It doesn't get tired, doesn't feel pain, and has built-in sensors that can detect electrical fields and magnetic signatures. In some ways, I'm actually better equipped now. Crystal Sings at Dawn raised his hand. Sergeant, do you not miss your biological arm? Marcus paused to consider the question. Of course I do. It was part of me for 32 years. but missing it won't bring it back. I can either spend time being sad about what I lost, or I can focus on what I gained. A young human private named Jackson looked confused. What did you gain, Sarge? Marcus held up his prosthetic hand, and the fingertips began glowing with small lights. Built-in flashlight. Computer interface that lets me hack enemy systems by touch. Pressure sensors that can detect heartbeats through walls. And the grip strength to crush steel. He demonstrated the last point by picking up a metal wrench and bending it into a pretzel shape. The alien soldiers made sounds of amazement. But more importantly, Marcus continued, I gained a new perspective. I learned that humans can adapt to almost anything. I learned that our alien allies are willing to help us through difficult times. And I learned that losing part of your body doesn't mean losing part of yourself. Buzz in Morning had been quiet during the demonstration, but now she spoke up. Sergeant Chen, may I share something with you? Of course, Marcus replied. After watching your response to injury, many of us have been discussing human psychology with our medical officers. We are beginning to understand that humans define themselves differently than other species. How so? Marcus asked, genuinely curious. Crystal Sings at Dawn answered. Most species define themselves by their physical capabilities. When we lose body parts, we lose identity. But humans seem to define themselves by their mental capabilities and their relationships with others. Marcus nodded thoughtfully. That makes sense. On Earth, physical bodies are vulnerable. They get injured, they age, they break down. If we based our identity on our physical condition, we'd all be miserable most of the time. So we learned to base our identity on things that are harder to destroy. Like what? Jackson asked. Like loyalty to our squad. Like knowledge and experience. Like the ability to solve problems and overcome challenges. Like caring about other people. Marcus looked around the group. Those things don't disappear when you lose an arm. Dr. Thill of Many Waters approached the group, carrying a data pad with medical information. Sergeant Chen, I have your latest test results. Your adaptation to the prosthetic is proceeding faster than any case in medical literature. Good news, I hope? Marcus asked. Remarkable news, the doctor replied. Your brain has formed new neural pathways to control the prosthetic in just 3 days. Most species require months to achieve this level of integration. Marcus flexed his prosthetic fingers, making them move in complex patterns. Humans are good at learning new skills quickly, especially when our survival depends on it. But you are not in a survival situation, Dr. Thill of Many Waters pointed out. You are in a safe medical facility with all necessary support. Every day is a survival situation, Marcus replied. That's how Earth taught us to think. You adapt quickly, or something else will come along to test you while you're still figuring out the first problem. Word of Marcus's recovery had spread throughout the Coalition base. Alien soldiers from different species came to observe the human who had lost a limb and continued fighting. They watched him demonstrate combat techniques with his prosthetic arm and listened to his explanations of human psychology. Humans have a saying, Marcus told a group of visiting officers. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Most species try to avoid damage. Humans try to learn from it. A senior Zephyrian commander named Hums with Authority clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. This explains much about human military effectiveness. You do not just survive setbacks. You improve because of them. Exactly, Marcus said. Every injury teaches us something. Every failure shows us how to do better next time. Every loss motivates us to protect others from the same experience. Later that day, Marcus received orders for his next assignment. He was being promoted to training instructor, with responsibility for teaching survival and adaptation techniques to mixed human-alien units. They want me to share what I learned from losing my arm, he explained to Crystal Sings at Dawn and Buzz in Morning. Apparently, some of the alien command staff think other soldiers could benefit from human-style adaptation training. Will you teach other species to ignore pain like humans do? Buzz in Morning asked. Marcus shook his head. I can't change how other species experience pain, but I can teach them how humans think about problems, how we break big challenges into smaller pieces, how we focus on solutions instead of obstacles, how we use setbacks as learning opportunities. These are valuable lessons, Crystal Sings at Dawn agreed. Many of us have observed human resilience, but few understand the mental processes behind it. That evening, Marcus was writing his training curriculum when he received a message from Coalition Command. The communication codes he had retrieved during the mission had led to a major victory against enemy forces. His actions had saved thousands of lives. Williams found him reading the message in the recreation area. "Good news, Sarge?" "Very good news," Marcus replied, showing him the datapad. "Turns out our little adventure made a bigger difference than we thought." Williams read the message and whistled softly. "They're recommending you for a medal." "They're recommending all of us," Marcus corrected. "This was a team effort." "Yeah, but you're the one who completed the mission after losing an arm." Marcus looked at his prosthetic hand, which was currently interfaced with the datapad, allowing him to read information directly through his fingertips. "I didn't complete the mission despite losing an arm. I completed it because losing an arm taught me that humans can adapt to anything." Several alien soldiers overheard this conversation and gathered around to listen. "Sergeant," one of them asked, "what is the most important thing humans want other species to understand about your psychology?" Marcus thought carefully before answering. "We want you to understand that humans measure success differently than most species. We don't measure success by avoiding problems. We measure success by solving problems. We don't measure strength by what we can prevent. We measure strength by what we can overcome." He stood up and looked at the diverse group of soldiers around him. "When I lost my arm, some of you expected me to give up. But giving up never occurred to me. Not because I'm special, but because I'm human. And humans have been solving seemingly impossible problems for as long as our species has existed." Crystal Sings at Dawn made his wind chime sound. "This is why we call you Deathworlders. Not because you come from a dangerous world, but because you respond to danger by becoming more dangerous yourselves." "Now you're getting it," Marcus said with a smile. "Earth didn't just make us tough. It made us creative, adaptable, and too stubborn to quit. And those are the skills that really matter in a war." As the group broke up for the evening, the alien soldiers carried with them a new understanding of their human allies. They had watched one man lose a limb and continue fighting. But more importantly, they had learned about the mindset that made such resilience possible. In the weeks that followed, Marcus's story spread throughout the Galactic Coalition. It became part of training materials, strategy discussions, and cultural exchange programs. But for Marcus himself, it was just another day at the office. The day he learned that losing an arm had gained him something much more valuable: the respect and understanding of his alien allies, and the opportunity to teach others that no setback is permanent for those who refuse to give up. The war continued, but now the coalition forces fought with a new appreciation for human psychology. They had learned that when humans said they would never give up, they meant it literally, and that made all the difference in the battles to come.